Okay, guys, so I have a really cool, inspirational interview with my good friend Jeff Jenkins. He's been in my ward for years, and he's been a very humble, modest guy. He's had a software company, and he just sold it for a ton of money. And we were just having a discussion on exactly how much he sold it for. I saw an article that says over $200 million. He says let's keep it safe. He doesn't want to say how much, but he says we're safe to say over $100 million.
Sounds good.
So we really don't know. But it's amazing because all this time he's been doing this while he's been a teacher at BYU, and while he's been, he has a family. How many kids do you have?
5 kids.
5 kids, and they're all here right now. But he has had church callings. He's been in the bishopric. He's been your elders quorum president.
Yep.
So all this time, and a lot of times he would walk to BYU, wouldn't you?
I would. It was my stress relief time.
Really?
Walking to BYU.
Even if it was cold outside?
Yeah, it was beautiful when it was cold because it was also quiet. Not many people were out when it was cold.
Did you get many ideas from walking?
Absolutely.
Really?
Some of my best ideas come from walking.
Oh, wow. Does your brain just keep going and going all the time?
I think it's nice to, when you get away from distractions, to have some quiet time.
Okay.
That was my walk to BYU. That's when good ideas come.
Interesting. How long did it take you to walk to BYU?
Just about 30 minutes.
30-minute walk. That's a long walk. Okay, well, I want to go into a little bit of your title. So you worked as an entrepreneur, as a professor, father, callings in the church, and your thing was neuro ID.
Yep, neuro ID.
Neuro ID and behavioral fraud detection.
Yep, that's what we did. So we would detect if someone was filling out an application for a loan, a credit card, with stolen credentials.
So before we go into how this happened, I want to hear about how you were raised and how you got into doing programming.
Yeah, that's a great question and topic. So I grew up on a dairy farm. It was an awesome life for a kid. I was outside a lot. At age 8, I started feeding the calves. For about the last 8 years at home, I saw the sun rise and set every day of my life outside working.
Well, you seem pretty happy about it. A lot of people
I was. It was a great life. And that's how most of the kids were in my area.
Really?
They were farmers. We lived on a dairy farm, so it wasn't out of the ordinary.
But it was hard work.
Having hundreds of acres of places to play on, and dirt bikes and cows and pets and tractors, it was a pretty good life.
So you're outdoor a lot.
Yeah, outdoor a lot.
When did you get your first computer?
So we got an early Mac. I don't know how old I was, but I do know I never tried anything in the development world, like computer programming, until I went to college.
Oh, really?
And so we would use our computer. I liked computers. I actually really enjoyed looking at computer magazines, like they're trying to sell you computers. I'm like, wow, look at this Mac. It has, and back then it was so little RAM and whatnot. But I enjoyed that, but I really didn't know much about the development world, engineering world, and computers.
Interesting. Now I want to point out, you guys, he said Mac, okay? Okay, go ahead. Not PC, Mac.
Well, we had a Mac, and then back then we realized that there was no software for Macs, and so we went over to a PC. Then I was on PC for 20 years. I went back to a Mac.
Oh, you did? Okay.
So,
okay, keep going.
Probably more than you wanted. But I was in college, and I was a physics major because I really drew on my experience on the farm looking at the stars each night. We didn't have neighbors, and so when I saw the stars at night, I saw the Milky Way in its full glory.
Wow.
And that was my love with physics. Did that, went on a mission, came back, and physics didn't click anymore.
Really?
And went into computer science, accounting, information systems. I struggled with programming at first. And I remember one time looking for a missing semicolon for hours. And then one day, it clicked. And although I had struggled with it, one day it clicked. And I felt like I could develop anything I wanted to in the world.
Wow, like one day, all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah, it was just like I went over the hump. And there's always a lot to learn. Yeah. But I gained the confidence that I could develop a company if I wanted to someday.
Wow. Who gets the biggest credit for your learning?
Probably some of my early professors at BYU, Idaho.
Oh, okay.
They made us program the hard way.
Oh,
Without, we didn't have AI back then, and they didn't even allow me to use some of the popular tools that made it easy. They wanted us to understand programming.
oh,
And
wow.
so they made us struggle, and then I transferred to BYU later, and I felt like, wow, I really appreciate those times struggling.
Oh, wow. Paid off.
It paid off.
Big time.
Yeah.
So you're at BYU and you're a professor at BYU for how many years before you started developing this new company?
Oh, good question. So I started developing this company when I was a PhD student at University of Arizona.
Oh, okay.
This company was my dissertation.
Oh,
And then BYU recruited me. I came and after graduating with my PhD and started the company a year after starting BYU.
and that was what year?
2014.
2014. Okay, so you started in Arizona because I noticed that you had some partners that actually live in Arizona.
Yeah, my co-founder lives in Arizona.
Okay, so you stayed in touch with him. You went to BYU and you continued to work on this project.
Yeah, we continued to work on it. I developed the first versions of it, and we assembled a team and went out and started selling it.
Really? Now, how does that work? You're at a university. When you're selling product, how does that work? Do you get part of the money? Does the BYU get all the money?
Yeah, so BYU, because I'm a professor at BYU, they own the intellectual property with the University of Arizona. They co-owned it.
Okay.
And then we had to license it back from them. So we licensed it back, paid them royalties, gave them ownership in the company, and that gave us the ability to take that and start up a company, start up NeuroID.
Okay. Wow. So I talked to you before about this, about how you went through some discouraging times because you were working on this. You were figuring, what am I doing? Is this thing even going to work, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of up and downs in an entrepreneur's life, right? They refer to a part of the company as the trough of sorrow. It's after the excitement sort of wears off and now you need to sell it and make payroll. And there's a lot of up and downs, but I felt like there were a number of experiences that really strengthened me along the way there.
Was it taking up a lot of time? Were you kind of getting stressed, like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, lots of time.
Lots of times.
Lots of time.
Like for how many years?
10 years until we sold it.
Up until you sold it. So I think I remember you telling me that you almost scrapped the whole thing. You just got discouraged, like this is never going to happen.
Well, I got hired as a new professor. And then I was faced with the decision, do we take this company, do we license intellectual property back? We had already got it patented. Or do I just be a professor? And I thought to myself, and I thought through this, and I weighed the pros and cons, and I came to the conclusion that it was probably going to take a lot of time to be an entrepreneur. I should just be a professor. Yeah, I just got my dream job at BYU. I needed to get tenure. I was raising a young family.
Church callings.
Church callings. That maybe I don't do it, that I just be a professor. And I remember a day we were in Idaho, and I was golfing with my wife Amy and my dad. And I was on the golf course, and I said a little prayer in my heart, saying, if I'm making the wrong decision, give me a good shot. I looked down that ball, and I said a little prayer in my heart, because I had worked through everything in my mind first. And I'm a horrible golfer, so a good shot means a whole lot to me.
So the answer is saying, your prayer, your answer was, should I pursue this?
Should I pursue this business, or should I continue my thoughts of just being a professor?
And so you were saying, give me a good shot if I'm supposed to pursue this business.
If I'm making the wrong decision of choosing not to pursue it, yeah.
Oh, making it, because you're pretty much
I had sort of decided just to be a professor.
So you're going to scrap the whole thing. So if I'm making the wrong decision, then let me know with a good shot. Okay, go on.
And so I looked down at this ball, and I still have this ball today, so you could probably guess it was a good shot. About 140 yards, I hit a hole in one. And so,
oh my gosh! Wow!
And so I decided at that point I'm going to do this business.
What an answer!
Yeah.
Hole in one.
I don't think you always get physical answers like that, but it's not without precedent.
That doesn't happen. How many professional golfers have actually had a hole in one?
Not many.
Not many. Here you are. Did I just
So,
blow
and
everyone
I'm a
away?
horrible golfer, very bad golfer.
That's amazing. That's quite the answer. So God did answer you, obviously. I
He
mean, that
did.
was an obvious answer. So He
Yeah.
wanted you to do that. So
Yeah.
then you decide, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, and as we went through those early struggling years, I had several experiences that really taught me God cares about us, and He wants us to succeed. But even maybe more importantly, He wants us to develop into good people. Right? He wanted me to develop into a better person through this process.
Oh, wow.
So when I think back on especially those early years in entrepreneurship, it wasn't just a business journey; it was really a spiritual journey. And I could, name several experiences where there was a refining moment in my life that I'll never forget.
Can we hear some of those experiences? Now that we're on more of a spiritual channel, let's go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, can I tell you two?
Sure.
Can I tell you two? So we got our first customer, and we were almost out of money. We had a lot of ups and downs, as every startup does. So we really needed this first customer. They said, yeah, we're going to pay you. They weren't a customer yet. Let me take that back. They said, we're going to pay you, but first you need to prove that this works for us. So we put in our software into their system. We were going to monitor it for about a month. And then we were going to send them a bunch of predictions if different applicants for loans were fraudulent or legitimate people. And so they sent me the IDs they wanted to, they wanted me to make the predictions about. But they also accidentally sent me something else, the answer key. They sent me the answer key that said, here's what we're going to check for, that that you said that these 10,000 people were legitimate and this 1,000 was fraudulent. They didn't know they sent that to me.
Oh, wow.
And here I am as a young entrepreneur with a company that at this point was still trying to make it. And I thought to myself, I have the answer key. Now that would have been really dishonest of me to rig the results based off of their answer key. But that was the temptation I had, was I could save the company here. This could turn into millions of dollars for me. All I have to do is look and make sure my results match those results.
Wow.
And it was tempting. I'm a pretty good person, I feel, but that was tempting.
You got millions of dollars there.
And I decided not to. So I deleted it and I let them know, hey, you sent me the answer key. I just want you to know I deleted it.
Wow.
So I chose the high road, the honest route.
There you go.
And we sent them our results, and do you know what happened? We failed miserably.
Really?
And we lost that client. And I am thankful for that decision I was forced to make, though, although we lost him. Because we lost a client, but in the end we won the war, right? If we would have cheated, and then it would have gotten out at some point, wow, it was working then, why is it not working now?
Oh, right. Yeah.
We would have lost a business. And I learned that you can never compromise integrity. Not just in business, but in life in general. And I am so thankful. We didn't have a great outcome with that one client, but I'm so glad that I chose integrity over that. And I looked, and that set a foundation for our company for the next 10 years. And that building block of making sure we had the highest integrity in our company led a number of decisions that ultimately led to a very successful company.
Yes. Wow, that's amazing. And you couldn't see the future. You figured it could have just been the end of the company and everything, but you held fast to integrity. Okay, you guys, listen to that. Make sure you remember that integrity pays off in the long run. Cheating pays off in the short run, but it's short-lived.
It's short-lived. You want the acquisition someday.
Wow.
Nothing, you can never compromise. But then it led to then I had another experience that followed up on that very closely. Number 2 client, they actually both said they would use it at the same time.
Oh.
We passed on them. It was working all right. They signed the contract for a substantial amount each month, enough to keep the lights on.
Okay.
And we were going along, and it was working all right for a few months. And then they came to me. I'll never forget this. It was on Thanksgiving. A few days before Thanksgiving, they came and said it stopped working the way it should.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, no.
What a way to spend Thanksgiving.
And I had just lost my first client, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so we had to have this one work. And I tried. They said, no problem. we'll give you, until after Thanksgiving to fix it, and everything's fine. And so very generous of them, but at the same time, I'm like, I am the founder of this. I have maybe
wow.
3 or 4 days to get this to work.
Wow.
And for 3 or 4 days, I spent every second working on this.
So all of Thanksgiving weekend.
I would go run and go get a quick, bite of Thanksgiving dinner, and then I would be back on my computer. It was nonstop. And I remember I tried everything that I could humanly think of to get that to work.
Wow.
And everything, and I was very well versed in the world of analytics and fraud detection, not just from an entrepreneur, but as a professor. So I tried literally everything that you could think of, and wasn't getting the results I wanted. And I remember when I had hit everything that I knew the hand of man could do, I remember saying a prayer, saying, thinking back on that golf ball, you wanted me to do this.
Okay, yeah.
Which that gave me strength on several occasions.
Oh, okay.
I need help. And I had a voice come to my mind saying, how are you doing with your scripture study?
Really?
I wasn't bad, but I don't know if I was great. And I said, I could do better. I will do better at that. I'll read every day. And then I had another voice in my mind came and said, how are you doing with your temple attendance? And, I wasn't bad, but I thought I'm within walking distance of a temple. I could do better. And I made a commitment to go more often. And at that moment, I had the exact lines of code flow to my mind to do this. That was the foundation for the company for the next 9 years.
Really?
And for many of our clients, they excelled. That model excelled. It excelled for many, many, many years for that client. But I learned, I'm sure God did care about the health of the company, but he cared just as much about me being a good person. He wanted to use this experience to help me refine myself.
Wow.
And so he cares about the company, he cares about our careers, but he does care that we are developing into the type of people he wants us to.
I mean, there's certain things you have to do to keep your mind open to the inspiration of the Spirit.
Yeah.
So
asking to start with, right?
Yeah, right.
When you've tried everything you can try, it's a good time to ask.
Clearing the lines of communication so that he can communicate those. Maybe there's this law that exists with that. We have to be more on that spiritual plane to be able to receive those inspirations. Wow. So that was the beginning of the 10-year?
Yeah, those were the first few years.
First few years, and so you kept that going.
Kept that going. The company developed more and more technologies. We had up and downs, like any company has, but ultimately the trajectory was up.
So you're just moving, just getting the bugs out. Nothing was as hard as that moment when you were the Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah. Again, there's ups and downs with any startup, and there were definitely other hard times and different challenges, but we always conquered. I've learned that it's not. Don't feel it's an exception to have challenges in life. Expect them and run after them, right? I learned as an entrepreneur, I'm a problem solver. Don't be surprised when problems happen. Embrace them and go solve it, and then you're on to the next one.
Well, not only are you the programmer, getting the brains behind this, but you're also the selling, and that's a whole nother ball game.
Well, I had some great sellers. So I was chief technology officer for about 7 years.
Okay.
And I managed a team that grew bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I split my role into two and became chief innovation officer and hired someone to run the technology side and analytics. But I did have a great team that was handling sales. And I supported sales. I would go to those meetings, especially the first 4 or 5 years.
Oh, okay.
But they were amazing to work with.
So how many people did you have on your team?
Oh, on my teams?
Just how many
Or
people
the
did you
company?
have? The company. How many people?
I think it ranged from the time to 50 to 100 different people.
So you're overseeing 50 to 100 people all this time.
And so in those early years, it was much smaller.
Okay, but just keep growing.
Just kept growing.
And so meanwhile, you still got your church callings. You still have your professor thing at the BYU. And your company's growing. So were you going through a lot of stress on all that, the growing pains?
There was one time I remember where it felt like the weight of the world was starting to crush down.
Oh.
Because there was a lot of responsibility. And I didn't miss my kids' games, and I didn't miss family responsibilities.
Wow.
And so I there was a lot going on, and I learned how to manage my time. I had some people coach me a bit on that, and really learned it's not about responding to urgent matters. It's about prioritizing what's important, and then responding to those things, because there's always enough urgent things to keep you busy every second
Yeah.
of the day.
Right.
So it's
a lot of
about
distractions.
making the important things the priority. And it sounds small, and there's techniques to help you with that, but it made a big difference.
You're going to go into the day planning business now? Did you listen to Stephen Covey at all, or any of that?
I have listened to Stephen
You
Covey
have.
in the past.
But you didn't really follow his plan.
And so I followed a different stream of research.
Oh, okay.
That's called high performance planning.
Oh, really?
And that was an awesome stream of research. It was a little too elaborate for me, so I created my own dumbed down version of it.
Oh, you did?
And
You're going to market that?
Maybe, you never know. But that made a big
look at the
difference
link.
for me.
Look at the link below, and you can get a good deal on that. Oh, that's great. Yeah, keep going. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, and so that really helped. I think learning how to prioritize
And so what are your
not just business, right? This specifically divides your life up into business, so work, relationships, physical, and spiritual.
So it's the same list of things to do, the same ingredients for any kind of success.
Yeah, exactly. And so the key is, the business will always be urgent, but reading your scriptures every day is important, right? And it's about diligence. You talked about hard working on the farm. It was hard work, but it was every day. It was consistent work, and that's what made it an experience. You had to be diligent.
So you learned that from working on the farm.
Yeah.
So I want all the young people to learn a hair out there. So what time would you get up in the morning?
Oh, between 5:30 and 6.
Okay, between 5:30 and 6, you'd go outside in the freezing cold.
Some days it was cold, yeah.
This is Idaho, right? And it gets cold up in Idaho.
It does. There were days when it was so cold I would just put my gloved hands on the tractor engine to warm them up.
Oh, really? So you get out there, you got tractors to do and everything, and then you'd go to school, come home and work again, or?
Yeah, from about 4 to 7, work again.
4 to 7, okay. What time would you get to bed?
Oh, probably 8.
8 o'clock. Okay, listen to that, you guys. Well, that upgrading was great. So what would you say, so you said the priority, what would you say would be the number one priority in your life? Of course, that has to be your relationship with God.
Yeah.
And
No, I think absolutely it's relationship with God and your family.
okay, so family came next. 1, 2. What was number 3?
Oh, probably work.
Work. Okay, number 3.
And sometimes things are busy, and so maybe tonight I have to work on work.
Okay.
But overall, you make those your priorities.
So basically, you're saying that these emergencies are always going to be there to distract you, keep from. So you actually turn down a lot of emergencies, huh?
And so there was one time when I was at my kid's soccer game, and one of our systems went offline.
Oh,
and
wow. That's a big
I
deal.
made a few calls to get people working on it, but every bone in my body wanted to be working on it, but it was my kid's first soccer game, so I didn't work on it. I had to trust that the other people I called were going to be able to take care of it.
Yeah.
And that was really stressful, but I stood and smiled and watched that game.
Really? And then you went, and then afterwards you found out that things were okay?
Well, so when it was over, I went and jumped in and helped with the problem.
And you're up all night, right? So you sold the company last fall.
Last fall.
This is 2025. So you sold it last fall, about what month?
September. August, September.
Are you still, was that a relief? How did you feel about that?
And so at first it felt, yes, a relief, absolutely. It's what we were working for the entire time.
Yeah.
But also you go from having this company that can literally take every thought you have to being gone. So I think for months I just felt this like, what's missing? This almost big gap in my life that, I'm still working on filling that a bit.
No kidding. Wow. Because, so do you still work with the company? Are you an advisor? Do you help them out?
So I'm still in contact with my previous employees, but I did not go over in the transition.
Okay. You didn't go over. So you don't have to help them right now.
No, yeah.
But
They're doing great without me right now.
They're doing great without you right now. Well, that huge company. What was it? Are you allowed to say the company at the bottom?
I am. Experian.
Experian. Yeah, they're pretty huge.
Yeah, they're
aren't they
huge.
aren't they one of the biggest in the world?
They are. They're one of the largest data bureaus in the world.
Did you meet with those guys, the head guys of Experian?
And so they're great people. Yeah, they.
Where was the headquarters?
In Dublin, Ireland.
See, did you go to Dublin,
But
Ireland?
I didn't. They have a huge North American presence.
Oh, they do.
As well.
Where's that at? Where
And
did you go?
so, you know, they're all over. I don't know if I can name all the places.
But you were going different places.
Well, it was after COVID. So the world of COVID
Oh.
changed the business world.
Okay.
We were traveling a lot before COVID, and then COVID hit, and everyone's okay with virtual meetings.
Okay.
So we had a lot of virtual meetings.
Oh, you did? Okay. So you didn't have to travel so much.
Mm-hmm.
Were you traveling during the transition time? Were you doing a lot of traveling to help them get on board?
No, not much. So I didn't go over, but I had very qualified team members who did go over, so they handled that.
But you had to teach them. You had to train them, right?
Well, I did over years. So
Over
they were
years.
on with me for years.
So you were working on this deal for years.
At least the people who would go over in the transition.
Okay.
And Experian was also a customer of ours. So.
Oh, they were okay. So the people that went over in the transition, were they people that worked under you?
Mm-hmm. So the vast majority of our team and all of our employees went over on the transition.
They did. Wow. So did you feel like you were the heaviness of a great responsibility of these people's career that were on your team?
You know, some of them, yeah, absolutely. You care a lot about these people.
Wow.
You know, some of them I taught in school and knew them for 4 or 5 years, and then I hired them onto my company, and they worked for 5, 6 years.
So you had that responsibility with all of them.
And so, you know, I had a great interest and desire that they would be very successful.
And then now they're with the company.
And they're excelling. Yeah,
They're
they
excelling.
have done such great things.
So you created how many jobs?
Been a lot of jobs over the years.
So how many would you say?
Hundreds.
Hundreds of jobs for people.
Uh-huh.
Wow, check that out. That's pretty amazing. Well, you have the ingredients to success. I love that. And I think that that's great you're mentioning that in this interview right here, because I want to emphasize that, you know, your secrets to success, because, hey, it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
You know, there's a scripture, and I should look it up, but it talks about if you seek riches. And it gives a few criteria. In fact, can I pull
go
it up
ahead,
really
pull
quick?
it up. Heck
It's in
yeah.
Jacob.
Bring up some
I'll
scriptures
turn on my
here.
phone.
So you had to keep a positive attitude,
Yeah.
even though things might be like, not doing too good.
Absolutely. And
keep the
especially
attitude
as a
positive.
founder or a
Yeah.
leader,
Keep the
if
positive.
you lose your optimism, it gets magnified several times for people you're mentoring and helping, managing.
Oh, wow.
And so even
Gotta
if you're
stay
having a
positive.
bad day, you can't have a bad day in front of them.
Oh, so you got to hide it. So you go home and have the bad day at home.
Yeah, you talk to your wife about
Is
it.
that true? Go and talk to your wife about it.
No, you
Yeah.
do. You pick out a few very trusted people that you can vent to.
Okay.
And yeah, other than that, you really can't.
Man, I tell you, staying positive.
Okay, it's
Right.
2:19. You ready for this?
Yeah, what book?
This is in Jacob 2:19.
Jacob 2:19. Okay.
And I'm going to break it apart for you a little bit if you don't mind.
Okay, that'd be great.
It says, this gives you the formula. A law, I feel, if you
Okay.
want riches, this is what you do.
Okay.
But before you seek riches, seek ye for the kingdom of God. That's verse 18. And then I want to read 19 that dives in a little more detail. So before you go seek riches, right, maybe you need to go through some of those refining times where you're going to the temple, where you're reading your scriptures. I had to go through those, where the riches are an end, but you need to be working on making yourself a disciple of Christ before that. That's what has to happen first. Now, whether you're forced that way through some prayers or you choose to go that way, which would be much easier, right? It's seek God first. Then, after ye have attained a hope in Christ, so after you accomplish that, ye shall obtain riches if you do these things. So they promise, ye shall obtain riches. If ye seek them, number one, when I think of the word seek, I think of that's a lot of work. It's not if you stumble across them. if you work your tail off to get them, if you seek them.
So that's something you did.
Yeah, and you seek them for the intent to do good. So you have to have the right reason why you're going for riches, right? In my mind, that's to serve God, right? It's not to go buy a yacht.
Right.
There are some nice yachts out there, but it's not to buy a yacht, but with the intent to do good, such as clothe the naked, to feed the hungry, to liberate the captive, and administer relief to the sick and afflicted. So
that's a good
again,
scripture.
focus on personal worthiness first, personal discipleship first. Work your tail off and have the right goal in mind. You shall obtain riches, and that was helpful for me.
So that's been your ingredients right there.
Yeah,
Your secret to success.
it's in the scriptures.
And they're right
Imagine
there.
that.
That's great. Well, very good. That's been a very inspiring interview. There's one more thing I want to ask you about. You mentioned a car wreck.
A car wreck. Yeah, so this was an experience. So the company is now much further along, to the point where it's going to sell at some point, right? We now have lots of customers. Our technology is performing quite well. We've proven in the market that this is the real deal, that companies need our behavioral fraud detection. They all know about it. And we still have ups and downs, as you always do in a startup. Yeah. But it's getting to the point where it's pretty obvious we are going to have an acquisition down the road.
Wow.
And we were going up Provo Canyon in our Suburban, and I just got the winter tires changed off onto the regular tires and some new brakes on it. And we were at a point in Provo Canyon before the reservoir where on the right side of the road going up it, there is a large drop. I'm horrible estimating distances, but it's a large drop into a river. And we were driving up there, and right at that point, the back wheel falls off the car.
Comes completely off.
Comes completely off. I guess it wasn't tightened completely. And I remember looking over Abraham like, I've lost control of the car. And we hit that railing, and my first thought is we're going to flip over it and fall down there. But I had all of us, we were all in the car, including our dog. And
the whole family.
And I had this feeling that, things are going to be okay. And in fact, everyone had that overarching feeling of peace as we bounced off the railing and spun and bounced off the other side.
So you went and bounced back.
It bounced back and ended up backwards in the lane.
You could have flipped right over that side.
We could have, and it honestly, as we were bouncing back and forth, felt like we were on a cloud being uplifted by angels.
Really?
And it occurred to me at that point that everything you work for in the business world could be gone in a second.
Oh.
Right? It could be gone. And every day, every minute is a gift from God. And I know without doubt that we were protected that day. We should have flipped over that. We should have died. You can still see the broken railing up there if you drive up there.
Really?
Years later. And so every day is a gift from God. And I think it's important to always keep your eyes single to His glory and recognize that nothing we have comes from ourselves. Even in the business, right? It was that Thanksgiving miracle where the revelation came line by line, literally line by line in code.
Line by line. Did it come as you were putting it in, or did you have it ahead of time and you just did what?
No, it was just like, here, write this, now write
Really?
this, line by line, or it's the refining fire of struggling and using that experience to make yourself better. Or it's the golf ball giving you the extra courage to make a step into the darkness. Everything we have comes from God. And the car wreck just solidified that in my mind, that we can't take credit for anything, and even if we could, it could be taken away in a second.
Wow, very inspiring. That's a great, I was going to say quote or whatever, but your little motto, you could actually put that on the wall, the things for success.
I think I still have some of the asphalt from the road on a paper plate at our house.
Oh, really?
Because it dug into the road and tore up the road.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So put that on a wall.
There you go. Wow. Well, this has been a very inspiring interview. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. And this gives you something to think about on our show, Faith, Hope, and Music. And so I guess we'll say thank you for coming on the show, Jeff Jenkins, and we'll see you next time.